Good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me. I'm here to talk this afternoon about using MBTI to power a values-driven culture in my current organisation, which is Cummins. But I thought before I start, I'd share a little bit about my own personal growth and my journey with MBTI. So about 8 years ago, when I was working with Holden, and Ashley and some of the team are still here today, cheering me on. Hi. We actually started utilising MBTI and spent a lot of time working with Martin in the area. And for me, it was around the personal insights for me as an HR practitioner, and the work and the insights, the personal insights that I could take. And my personal light bulb moment was actually looking at the F&T side of things. I'm very much, as an extroverted person, enjoy going out and seeing problems and seeing situations, but then I need to talk about them. And my situation was I would go home at night time and say to my husband, blah, 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 this is what's happened at work and I need to tell you all about it and I want to talk about it. And it was about me thinking it through. My husband sat there every night and gave me logical, straightforward decisions. Well, this is just what you need to do. Get on, get it done. And I would sit there and say, but that's not what I need. That's not what I need. And so it would actually end in conflict between the two of us, because I'd get frustrated with him and he would get frustrated with me. And it was actually then understanding around my preference and my husband's preferences that I actually then learnt to go home and say, I just need to vent, please. And my husband would say, okay, off you go. Let me know when you're ready to actually have a proper conversation about it. And so, in terms of thinking about that for me and for my life, from a personal perspective and my own personal insights, that's been incredibly rewarding for myself and my partnership with my husband. But obviously you then take that into everyday work life as well. And if I think about the roles and the different teams and my own personal growth as an ENFP, I work very hard with the teams that I'm working with to try and suspend my thoughts and my ideas and my creativity up front and actually make sure that every single one of my team have an opportunity to speak first before we actually make any decisions. I've also learnt the hard way very much the importance of the devil being in the detail. If you don't have an S in your team, find one, because the devil is in the detail and you don't want to miss things. Also, the nature of my work requires that all facets of discussion are considered, and becoming really rounded in that T&F approach is an ongoing development for me. And finally, as a P, I know I can fly by the seat of my pants. I will get things done. And often with very little time and planning. But I've learnt that in business it's incredibly important that you do have a plan. And so the way that I've worked with that is that when I get a new opportunity for a new project, which I'm excited about, I'm trying to work very hard on actually putting that planning up front in that first initial piece so that I do know what I'm doing, that I do have a project plan. So when I have my days of, oh, this is a bit boring and there's lots of other exciting things going on, I still know that I have that plan so that I can execute what I need to execute. So in terms of my own personal journey and then looking at the organisations that I work with, I've had the pleasure of actually working with MBTI across 3 different organisations. But to talk to you about the value of Cummins and Cummins as an organisation, I'll start to tell you a little bit about the history, because I think we're a very large organisation that many people don't know very much about. So to set the scene, Cummins was actually founded in 1919 in Columbus, Indiana, by 2 men, an inventive mechanic, Clessie Cummins, who you can see on the left, and an investor, W.G. Irwin, on the next. So he looks a little bit more serious, but he's a banker and he's the man with all of the money. And it was an unlikely partnership between the two, but they shared the belief in the power of ideas, innovation, and hard work. So as an organisation, They looked at the development of diesel engines, and they had there were about 200 licenses for diesel engines at the time. And they looked at the transformation of that as a power source. And they did a number of different things in order to actually promote how good Cummins was as an organisation. They did a coast-to-coast bus tour powered by Cummins diesel engines back in 1932. So they travelled 2,797 miles from New York to Los Angeles. It took them 91 hours and 10 minutes, but it cost them $21.90. So equivalent to today, it takes you 6 hours to fly, and it costs you about $309. So obviously for them, it was all about telling about the sustainability and how good the product was. They also did a lot of work with Indianapolis 500, so the big car racing, and that's something that's continued for the last 100 years in that space. But overall, the Irwin family really believed in diesel technology, and they didn't actually earn their first profit until 1937. So it took them 18 years of innovation, hard work, before they got to their first profit. But today, as an organisation, we're on the verge of becoming a $20 billion organisation. So to talk about a little bit more about our business and who we are, as we're almost celebrating 100 years ourselves, and there'll be some big parties, I'm sure, a strong global position gives us really extensive reach. We've got 55,000 employees worldwide, serving customers in more than 190 countries and territories. There's a network of approximately 600 company-owned and independent distributor facilities and more than 7,400 dealer locations. And we actually manufacture across 6 continents. Here in South Pacific, we have around 1,700 employees across 40 locations in Australia, New Zealand, and Papua New Guinea. The breadth and depth of our organisation allows us to really understand the local markets that we're working in and really understand the challenges that our customers face. And we have a fit-for-market approach that allows us to tailor solutions for our customers and also for the communities that we're working within. So to talk about some of our markets that we're in, so we cover on highway, so big trucks that you'll see out there, Kenworth trucks are often powered by Cummins engines. With power generation, many of the big hospitals in Australia are powered using Cummins generators, and a number of data warehouses as well. We support the Coast Guard here in Australia with their ships, with their boats, I should say, rather than ships. And we're also in mining, oil and gas and defence, probably up in the Lake Macquarie region. And also in rail, both in Melbourne and in Sydney. And we also have a big presence in construction and agriculture. And you'll see on this picture, we've got on the left-hand side a big blue engine. We also have them in red and yellow. But they are different sizes, but it's always good because you go, oh, that's a pretty one. But the blue one's actually quite new for us, which is exciting. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the green power generation sets that we have, huge generator sets to support all sorts of organisations. As a business, when markets have been soft, we've actually been a business that's invested and continued to invest. So going back to the early days in 1990, and in 2014, we invested $750 million in research and development. So on the surface, in many ways, we look like many other organisations. We have a founder, we have a profit, we expanded our business, and we innovate. But the inner workings of our business are actually an essential key to our success, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about now. So to talk about the essence of our culture, I'd like to introduce you to a man by the name of J. Irwin Miller. He was the nephew of the founding mechanic, Clessie Cummins, and he joined Cummins in 1936 as a general manager at the age of 24. He held the role of chairman from 1951 through to 1977. When he joined the company 15 years in, the company hadn't made a profit. And he came in and he just kept asking questions in his own words, till he drove the people crazy. And they kept saying to him, "You're here, you're a general manager. I'm looking to you as a leader. Get something done, do something, help us make a profit." And he said, "I'm going to continue to ask questions until I understand what the problem is." And you'll actually find that in terms of that legacy and that lifelong approach of asking questions, and he did it all the way through his career with our organisation and instilled that in others. And you'll often hear people use the term seek to understand in our business, particularly if people are going ahead and making decisions. Seek to understand, which goes to collaboration and looking at that from Miller's first approach. So I'm just going to share with you some of the quotes that J. Irwin Miller had made over his time. "In the search for character and commitment, we must rid ourselves of inherited, even cherished biases and prejudices. When we indulge ourselves in such irrational prejudices, we damage ourselves most of all and ultimately assure ourselves of failure in competition with those more open and less biased." So this statement really speaks to the importance of self-awareness and acceptance of others that are different to you. And through his work, not only at Cummins, but within the community in which they operated, he did an awful lot of work. But this is a key part for us in terms of our diversity and inclusion strategy and the way that we are expected to act as leaders in our organisation. He also made the statement, if a man or woman is to do her best, it has to be in a climate in which they want to do it. And for us as an organisation, that really speaks to every single employee in the organisation has a voice and it should be heard. He talked about the fact that the people on the shop floor are actually the ones that are really there doing the work, and they're the ones that should be listened to. And often for managers coming in, he would challenge the managers when they said, "But I'm the one that should have the ideas." But he drove his approach of ask the questions and seek the input of the people on the shop floor who are really doing the work. Listen to them, listen to your customers and what they are telling you, and that's what will actually guide us, and that's what will make sure that everybody in the organisation can do their best. And finally, he made the comment of business is not a balance sheet or machinery or factories. Business is a collection of human beings that can accomplish more working together than any of them could separately. And this really speaks to the true essence of a collaboration, valuing diversity and inclusion on a very human level. He was a great leader, a social activist and philanthropist. He brought a humanitarian sensibilities to the business world, and in doing so, for us as an organisation, built a legacy that's carried over to this day. One of the key areas that he has developed that is very alive in our organisation today is the area of corporate responsibility. In 1972, he actually established corporate responsibility before it was ever a buzzword. And for us, we live it every day as employees. So we have something called EEC, which is every employee, every community. And we actually spend time going out and working across 3 different areas of environment, equality of opportunity, and education. We believe in the long haul that corporate responsibility helps make our business more sustainable by focusing on solving problems in the communities. And it's the same problems that serve as barriers to our growth as an organisation. Education of the workforce, access to modern energy services, and focusing on commitment of the environment. We also do a lot of work with Beacon Foundation here in Australia, the Australian National Disability Group. We're also part of the Male Champions of Change group as well, and we do a lot of PACE mentoring work with underprivileged individuals trying to get into the workforce. The statistics up here are from the 1,700 employees across Australia just for 2016 in Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, and the work that we've done in that area, so that you can see that it's very much alive and kicking in terms of our connection to our community and the work that we do. So to share with you about today and the impact of Erwin Miller and other like-minded individuals, it's really continued through his philosophies with our business through to today. And we've recently revisited and relaunched our mission, vision and values, which you can see here. This was done, as you won't be surprised, through a very collaborative approach and consultation across the business globally. Our CEO, Tom Linebarger, actually came out to Australia in the last month to actually spend time with us, talking to us about our mission, vision and values. And the essence of this is really around our story, and our story as leaders. And Tom shared with us his own personal stories and the importance of leadership for him and how these values work for him. And every one of us as leaders in our organisation are spending time telling our own stories with our people and how our lives connect with the values. And you'll see that the integrity, diversity, inclusion, caring, excellence and teamwork are all very much areas that have synergies with MBTI. And so thinking about our role as leaders is really important and how that connects together. Because as Tom Linebarger said when he was here a month ago, it's okay when you're trying to put together a string band. You've got 4 or 5 people, they're all playing similar instruments, but your role and your responsibility as a leader is to put that symphony together and make it a symphony. And when you've got many, many, many different talents and abilities in an organisation, it's how you work as a leader to include every one of those individuals so that they can play their part in a symphony. And if you can do that, you can be a great leader. So key within the values and vision is our leadership culture. And in the statement of inspiring, encouraging all employees to achieve their fuller potential. And for us, this is really inherent to our culture. And to be inclusive is to be open to the personalities and views and others of, and MBTI for us is a great tool to actually assist us in doing it. For us, it starts with the leaders knowing who they are and their own preferences, their personal styles, their strengths and their weaknesses. Many years ago, MBTI was used in our organisation, but was verging on being misused to actually pigeonhole people. So we actually called a halt to that and came back with a different strategy over the last 4 to 6 years where we have a clear purpose around the use of MBTI. And that is that our goal is to ensure a consistent approach in using MBTI to promote self-awareness and team effectiveness in keeping with our diversity and inclusion value. So what we've done is we have have over 150 qualified practitioners in place, right around the globe working with CPP. And we have web pages, we utilise the US YouTube sites, we have a host of CPP material, and regularly as practitioners we catch up to share stories and experiences so that we can have an ongoing shared community across the globe to share those learnings and experiences. So what are we using MBTI for? We're using mainly the step 2, and we also use the Thomas Kilmann conflict mode instrument as well to help from a conflict perspective. And we have a number of leadership development programs where the essence of that is to seek first to understand yourself and then recognise how you can flex your preferences. And we have leadership behaviours that very much align with all of the areas for against MBTI. So it's around self-discovery of creating the right environment, thinking strategically and setting the aim, being authentic and building trust, engaging in constructive conflict, which is a real challenge for us in the organisation. We have a tradition of, because everybody is very inclusive and valuing diversity, that often means that we go round and round in circles and collaborate and over-collaborate when actually we need to have some decisions, and we need to learn as a business and become more skilled as leaders to know that healthy conflict is a good thing. And so the use of MBTI for us in that area is really, really valuable. Understanding the different conflict pairings and the need to actually work through and not avoid conflict. So around creating space, adding value and seeking closure in the right way is an area that we're working very hard with. We use it within all of our team development and our senior leadership sessions. We then also use it with a number of intact teams, so where we've got teams working together in order to have effective outcomes. We also use it, and I guess it links to the work that Deacon were just speaking about in terms of individual development programs. We have a number of interns that come and join us every year. We use MBTI and take them through the tool, very similar to the Deacon approach in terms of understanding self-awareness, coming into a work environment for the first time, understanding how they speak and interact, because, as Deacon was saying earlier, they've had the luxury of talking to their friends and choosing who they interact with most of the time up until they're in a work environment where they don't have that choice anymore and often have to work with people and deal with people that are not like themselves. So we integrate that into our intern program as well. Personally, myself as well, in the time that I've been with Cummins, we spend a lot of time doing individual development around increase of self-awareness, communication preferences, dealing with conflict, and also communicating during change. So to share with you some of the impacts and insights, I'm going to share with you 5 statements that employees have actually made around having gone through the MBTI tool and a bit of a story about it. So the first one was understanding that how I perceive the world and make decisions isn't always the same way that others do. This was from an employee that I worked with who undertook MBTI and had ongoing conflict. So they were working in a support role with an operations leader. And they felt that every time they went to actually try and talk through the detail and the facts and the very important information, that the operations leader wasn't connecting with them. The operations leader would want to talk about big picture but would never want to get into the detail. And the problem was that the projects in terms of meeting financial and purchasing requirements were being missed. But this individual, being an introvert working with an extrovert, felt that they couldn't speak up to this operational leader. As we went through and talked about their situation, they really realized that, well, it's because I look at the world differently. I look at the data, I need to know all of the information, and I want to sit and listen. This person wants to talk and talk about the big picture and doesn't understand. So it was great to work with both parties to actually help them understand the differences of their approaches, but the importance of having both approaches in the mix together to have much better outcomes and great action planning and strategies for working with each other moving forward. The second one was insights into my interaction both at work and at home, and this really aligns to our culture as an organisation, that it's not just about being at work, it's also about your home life. And I was working with an employee who was a clear J, and as we talked through the preferences, he began to talk about his child at home, who was completing year 12 and who he was terribly worried about, because his son seemed to have lots of excitement about his work to start with and then seemed to do nothing until the last minute. And he was incredibly worried, and it was making him stressed. And because of the lack of planning and the structure, and he was really worried that that was going to be his son's downfall. But talking through the difference between J and P for this gentleman actually made him realise, hang on, it's not my son who's got an issue, it's myself. My self-awareness, I have an issue with what I am actually doing and how I'm treating my son, because I'm going home and I'm just getting into him, which is making him back off even more. What I need to do is actually deal with the issues that I feel around the fact that I think I need to be planned, therefore everybody needs to be planned. And so off he went and sat down and spoke to his son, and instead of going home and having a go, he actually went home and said, "Why do you do what you do?" And his son said, "Oh, I get excited at the start, and then, I get a bit bored and there's other things going on. But I always get it done, Dad. Don't worry. I always get it done at the end." And he said, "Okay, son, then I understand that. And it's okay." And to have that understanding and that light bulb moment for him within his work life, within his home life was really important. Teams come together to bring about results that no one person could achieve on his or her own. This was an insight from a leader that I worked with who had come up through the ranks in the business, as many of you would know. He had 28 years in the business, and because he'd come up from the bottom to the top, had a habit of dipping down. Do we know some people like that? Dipping down and going down the rungs of the ladder to actually help solve the problems. And it's because he thought that he actually needed to solve everything. But through going through the MBTI process to actually understand and appreciate all of the different skills and capabilities that the individual team members brought about, he actually realized, I need to stay on my rung so that my team can do the work that they need to do, and that we together can actually achieve so much more. This one around recognizing how much we need to rely on those around us to fill in our gaps and bring strengths to the areas in which we were weak. This was with a manager that I worked with who tried to carry everything for themselves. Very traditional, I'm the manager, it's all on me. I have to do everything. But what we did is we ran a team session with himself and his direct reports, who were also leaders. And through increasing their own self-awareness and preference, we actually spent a lot of time talking about projects that they'd done before, what had worked well and what hadn't worked well. And for the first time, because we created the language using MBTI for them to actually articulate what they were thinking or feeling or seeing around the situations, we were actually then able to see that we could move forward as a team. They could actually better plan for projects. They could better look at how they leverage the different strengths of individuals. And that also one of the critical things was that they were actually able to show their vulnerabilities without seeing them as failures. Because as we know with MBTI, there's no right or wrong, it's just different. And for the first time for a team to actually sit there and see, actually I can be vulnerable, it's okay that I'm not really great at this, as a leader was really insightful for us. And then finally, this is from a participant from our High Performing Teams program. And this speaks to some nervousness that they had around going into working within the community. As I mentioned before, we do a lot of work with the national disability and children who come from more difficult backgrounds. And this is really their view of self-growth and development, that just taking the time to understand yourself and understanding, and rather than making that judgment of a book by its cover, there's so many more gifts and so much more that you can get from life once you understand that. So in closing, our story for us is our story, our people are our future. Our employees and our leaders are our future. They're tasked with continuing to live our values every day, bringing excellence and caring to their work, honouring the diversity of opinions, perspectives and people that make us who we are without judgment, acting with integrity and fairness, drawing on one another's talents and collaborating. And when we embrace these behaviours as individuals, we grow and improve. As colleagues, we move forward together. And as a company, we can make a lasting and positive difference for ourselves, our families, and our communities. And hopefully, as you've seen from today, MBTI plays a key role for us in the education and guidance to assist all of our employees and leaders in their own self-development and to achieve these expectations and help us to uphold the culture in the right way. Thank you for listening.